The stars had always called to humanity, and in the year 2247, they finally answered back. Earth received a transmission from something called the Galactic Council, a group of alien species that ruled a large portion of the galaxy. The message was simple and welcoming. They wanted to meet humanity and offer them a place among the stars. Ambassador Daniel Carter stood in the briefing room at the United Earth Government headquarters, looking at the faces of world leaders on dozens of screens. He was a tall man with gray hair and steady eyes, someone who had spent 30 years in diplomatic service. Now he faced the biggest assignment in human history. "They say they come in peace," President Linda Hayes said from her screen. She was a woman who had led Earth through difficult times, and her voice carried both hope and caution. "But we need to be careful. This could change everything for our species." Daniel nodded. "I understand, Madam President. My team will observe every protocol. We'll learn everything we can about them before making any commitments." The Council had sent coordinates for a meeting place, a massive station orbiting a neutron star called Proxima Thal. It would take Earth's fastest ship 3 weeks to reach it. Captain Lucas Hayes, a decorated officer with 15 years of deep space experience, would command the ESS Valiant for this historic journey. Lucas met Daniel at the shipyard, where the Valiant waited like a silver needle pointed at the stars. The ship was beautiful, built with the best technology humanity had developed. It carried a crew of 200, including scientists, diplomats, and security personnel. "She's ready, Ambassador," Lucas said, shaking Daniel's hand. "We've run every test twice. The quantum drive is functioning perfectly." Dr. Rebecca Stone joined them on the observation deck. She was a xenobiologist, someone who studied alien life, though until now she had only worked with theories and simulations. Rebecca was young, barely 30, but she was the brightest mind in her field. "I still can't believe this is happening," she said, her eyes wide with excitement. "Real aliens. Real first contact. Everything I've studied is about to become real." Commander Jake Morrison was less enthusiastic. He was head of security for the mission, a former military officer who had seen combat in the colony wars. Jake was the kind of man who expected trouble and prepared for it. "I've reviewed the Council's message 50 times, Jake said quietly to Lucas. "Something feels wrong." "Why now? Why us? We've only had faster than light travel for 2 years. How did they even know about us?" Lucas clapped him on the shoulder. "That's why you're here, Jake. Keep your eyes open. But let's not start a war before we even say hello." The Valiant departed Earth on a Tuesday morning, watched by billions of people across every screen and device on the planet. The journey through faster-than-light space was smooth, the quantum drive humming with power as it bent reality around the ship. When they arrived at Proxima Thal, the crew stood in stunned silence. The Council station was enormous, larger than Earth's moon, a structure of impossible geometry and gleaming metal. Thousands of ships moved around it like insects around a hive, each one different, each one representing a species humanity had never imagined. Chancellor Vexter greeted them personally. He was a being from a species called the Krill, standing nearly 3 meters tall with a body covered in gleaming chitin. His 4 eyes studied the humans with what might have been curiosity or might have been hunger. It was impossible to tell. "Welcome, humans of Earth," Vexter said through a translation device. His real voice was a series of clicks and whistles, but the device made it sound almost friendly. "We have waited long to meet you. Your species shows great promise." The first week of meetings went well. The Council showed them around the station, introduced them to dozens of species, and spoke of trade, technology sharing, and mutual protection. Daniel was cautious but optimistic. This could mean a golden age for humanity. Rebecca spent her time studying the aliens, taking notes, asking questions. She learned that the council had existed for 12,000 years, maintaining peace across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. 47 species called it home, but Jake noticed things that troubled him. Council guards always watched them, even in supposedly private areas. Their quarters were certainly bugged with listening devices. And the questions the council asked were strange, focused on military strength, resource locations, and defensive capabilities. "They're gathering intelligence," Jake reported to Daniel after 2 weeks. "They want to know how strong we are, what we have, where it's located." "This doesn't feel like diplomatic curiosity." Daniel frowned. "The council has maintained peace for thousands of years, Commander. Perhaps they're just being thorough. We're an unknown species to them. Or they're planning something," Jake insisted. "Ambassador, I recommend we cut this short and return to Earth. We can continue talks remotely." But Daniel believed in the mission. He believed in peace and cooperation. He asked Jake to give him more time, to not let paranoia destroy humanity's best chance at joining the galactic community down in the 3rd month. Everything changed. Daniel was called to a formal session of the council. All 47 member species present in a vast chamber that could hold thousands. Chancellor Vexter stood at the center, and his friendly demeanor was gone. "Humanity has been evaluated," Vexter announced. "We have determined your species acceptable for incorporation into the council. You will now accept the tributary accords." Daniel felt his blood turn cold as he read the document presented to him. It wasn't an alliance. It was a surrender. Earth would give up 60% of all resources. Humanity would dismantle its military fleet. Council occupation forces would be stationed on every human colony. Earth would become a subject state, not a partner. "This is not what we discussed," Daniel said, his voice hard. "We came here for mutual cooperation, not subjugation." Vexter's 4 eyes fixed on him. 47 species stand with the council, Ambassador. 12 joined willingly when they saw the benefits. 35 were incorporated after they refused. Humanity will be the 48th one way or another. You have 1 hour to accept these terms. Daniel looked around the chamber at the alien faces watching him. Some looked sympathetic. Others looked eager. He understood then that the council wasn't a democracy or a partnership. It was an empire that wore the mask of cooperation. "No," Daniel said clearly. "Humanity refuses." Vexter made a gesture, and council guards moved forward. "Then humanity will learn the price of refusal. Your ship is surrounded. Your planet's location is known. Surrender now, or your species will face extinction." Jake was already moving, his security team activating emergency protocols. Lucas received the alert on the Valiant's bridge and made a decision that would save the human race. He ordered an emergency jump, something dangerous and desperate, but their only chance. The trap had been sprung, but humanity would not go quietly into the dark. The alarm klaxon screamed through every corridor of the ESS Valiant as Captain Lucas Hayes ran toward the bridge. His boots hammered against the metal floor while crew members rushed to battle stations around him. This was the nightmare scenario they had trained for, but hoped would never come. "Report," Lucas barked as he dropped into the captain's chair. The main view screen showed what he had feared. 300 council warships surrounded the diplomatic station, each one massive and bristling with weapons. The Valiant was trapped at the center like a mouse surrounded by cats. "They've raised shields and charged weapons," said Lieutenant Amy Foster from the tactical station. She was young, but kept her voice steady, even as her hands moved across the controls. "Multiple targeting locks on our position. They mean to capture or destroy us, Captain." Commander Jake Morrison burst onto the bridge, his security team behind him. "Ambassador Carter is in council custody. They grabbed him right after he refused their terms. The rest of our diplomatic team is pinned down in the conference section." Lucas felt rage burn in his chest, but he pushed it down. Emotion would not save his ship or his crew. He needed to think clearly. Can we fight our way out? Negative, Amy said immediately. We're outnumbered 300 to 1. Even if we took down 10 of them, the rest would tear us apart. Dr. Rebecca Stone appeared from the science lab, her face pale. Captain, I've been monitoring Council communications. They're not planning to negotiate. They intend to execute our diplomatic team as an example, then send their fleet to Earth. The bridge fell silent for a moment. Every person there understood what that meant. Earth had 80 ships total, most designed for system defense. Against 300 Council capital ships, humanity would face extinction. How long until they reach Earth? Lucas asked quietly. Rebecca checked her instruments. 6 months at their standard faster-than-light speed. Maybe less if they pushed their engines. Lucas made a decision then, the kind that would haunt him for the rest of his life or make him a hero. Probably both. Jake, get every non-essential person to the escape pods. Program them for Earth coordinates. Launch them in 30 seconds. What about you? Jake demanded. What about the command crew? We're going to buy them time, Lucas said. He turned to Rebecca. Doctor, can you overload the quantum drive? Make it burn hot enough to rip us out of normal space. Rebecca's eyes went wide. That's never been tested at full power. It could tear the ship apart. Even if it works, the drive will burn out. We'll be stranded. Better stranded than dead, Lucas said. Do it. We jump in 60 seconds. Jake wanted to argue, but knew there was no time. He activated the ship-wide intercom. All non-essential personnel to escape pods immediately. This is not a drill. You have 45 seconds. The next minute was chaos. Over 100 crew members ran for the escape pods while the bridge crew prepared for an impossible jump. Rebecca's fingers flew over the science console, bypassing every safety system, pushing the quantum drive far beyond its design limits. The Council ships noticed the escape pods launching and opened fire. But Lucas had positioned the Valiant between them and the fleeing pods. The ship's shields took hit after hit, energy blasts that would have vaporized the small escape craft. Alarms screamed as shield strength dropped to critical levels. Drive is ready, Rebecca shouted over the noise. But Captain, I can't guarantee where we'll end up. Anywhere but here, Lucas said. Jump now. The universe turned inside out. The Valiant's quantum drive erupted with blue-white light, more power than it was ever meant to hold. Space itself seemed to scream as the ship punched through reality, leaving the Council fleet behind in a burst of radiation. For 5 seconds, the crew experienced something no human was meant to feel. They existed in all places and no place, stretched across dimensions that human minds could not process. Then, reality snapped back, and they were somewhere else. The bridge was dark, except for emergency lighting. Smoke filled the air, and half the consoles were dead. Lucas pulled himself up from where the jump had thrown him against the bulkhead. His head throbbed, and his vision swam. Damage report, he croaked. Amy's station was still functioning. Quantum drive is completely burned out. Main power at 15%. Life support is stable, but running on backup systems. We're alive, Captain. Where are we? Jake asked, helping Rebecca to her feet. Rebecca checked the sensors, then checked them again. 3 light years from Earth, in interstellar space. No planets, no stations, nothing but empty void. Lucas felt his heart sink. They had escaped the Council, but now they were stranded in the middle of nowhere. Can we reach Earth on conventional drives? It would take 3 years at sublight speed, Amy said. And we don't have the fuel or supplies for that journey. Communications? Lucas asked, though he already knew the answer. Heavily damaged. Short range only. Earth won't hear us from here. Lucas looked around at his crew, the 30 people who had stayed behind to save the others. They had won their freedom but might die in the darkness between stars anyway. Unless someone back home realized they were missing and came looking. Get engineering working on the communications array, Lucas ordered. If we can boost the signal, maybe Earth will pick it up. In the meantime, we ration everything. Food, water, power. We survive as long as we can. 3 weeks passed as the crew of the Valiant worked frantically to repair their battered ship. Lucas spent his time in the captain's quarters, recording everything that had happened. If they died out here, at least the black box might be recovered someday. Future humans would know what the council really was. Then on the 22nd day, Amy burst into his quarters without knocking. "Captain, we got a signal out." I boosted it using the emergency beacon and every ounce of power we could spare. It's weak, but if Earth is listening, they'll hear it. Lucas allowed himself a moment of hope. How long until they receive it? 3 years at light speed, Amy said, and his hope died. But we included data on the Council fleet, their route to Earth, everything we learned. Even if we don't make it, Earth will have a warning. Meanwhile, back on Earth, President Linda Hayes stood in the command center deep beneath the North American continent. She had received fragments of Ambassador Carter's final transmission, pieces of a message that had been sent before the Council jammed all communications. The words were broken but clear enough. The Council was coming. 6 months. 300 ships. War. "Get me Fleet Admiral Christopher Blake," she said to her aide. "Activate all defense protocols. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. We're going to war." Admiral Blake arrived within the hour. He was an older man, his hair white, his face lined with the experience of 40 years in Earth's space forces. He had fought in the colony wars, against pirates and raiders, but never against anything like this. "How many ships do we have?" Linda asked him directly. 80 combat vessels, Blake said, his voice grim. Another 20 in construction that could be rushed into service. Against 300 council ships, Madam President, the mathematics are not in our favor. Linda looked at the holographic display showing Earth and its defenses. Beautiful blue planet, home to 10 billion souls. The Council wanted to conquer it, subjugate humanity, make them slaves. She felt rage and determination fill her. "Then we changed the mathematics," she said. "Admiral, I'm authorizing the Manhattan Protocol. Every experimental weapon, every banned technology, everything we kept locked away because we thought we'd never need it. Use it all. We have 6 months to prepare." Blake nodded slowly. "The Council is about to learn something important about humanity, Madam President. We don't fight fair, and we don't quit." Across Earth, the mobilization began. Dr. Patricia Moore had spent 20 years preparing for a war that everyone hoped would never come. She worked in a facility that officially did not exist, buried 3 kilometers beneath the Rocky Mountains. The Manhattan Protocol was humanity's darkest secret, a weapons program that ignored every rule of civilized warfare. Now President Linda Hayes stood in Patricia's laboratory, looking at designs that would make any council species recoil in horror. Patricia was a small woman with sharp eyes and absolutely no illusions about the nature of war. She had studied every conflict in human history and learned one lesson well. Victory went to whoever was willing to do what the enemy would not. "Show me everything," Linda said simply. Patricia pulled up holographic displays that filled the laboratory with floating blueprints and simulation data. The Council follows something called the Warfare Accords, rules established 10,000 years ago. No antimatter weapons. No kinetic weapons above certain speeds. No artificial intelligence in combat systems. No chemical or biological agents. They fight according to rules. And we didn't sign those accords. Fleet Admiral Christopher Blake said. He had joined the president for this briefing, his face hard as stone. Exactly, Patricia said with something like a smile. We've developed 3 primary weapon systems. First, the Hellfire missiles. Antimatter warheads, each one carrying enough destructive power to vaporize a ship 10 times our size. The Council banned these because they're too dangerous, too unpredictable, too absolute. She moved to the next display. Second, the Phantom stealth system. It doesn't just hide our ships from sensors. It bends electromagnetic radiation around the hull, making our vessels literally invisible. Council sensors rely on energy signatures and mass detection. Our ships will appear as empty space. Blake leaned forward, interested now. How many ships can we equip? We've been building small fighter craft specifically for this system, Patricia said. The Ghost Fighters. Each one carries 4 Hellfire missiles and can operate independently or in swarms. We have manufacturing capability for 60 operational Ghosts in 5 months. Linda felt hope stir for the first time since receiving Ambassador Carter's warning. What's the third system? Patricia's expression turned fierce. The Ragnarok cannons. Magnetic accelerators that can fire solid projectiles at 98% light speed. At that velocity, a chunk of tungsten the size of your fist hits with the force of a nuclear weapon. The kinetic energy alone can tear a capital ship in half. The Council banned kinetic weapons, Blake said. Why? Because there's no defense, Patricia explained. Energy shields can stop lasers and particle beams. But solid matter moving that fast just punches through. By the time sensors detect the projectile, it is already hit. The Council considers it barbaric and unfair. War is not fair, Linda said coldly. How many of these Ragnarok cannons can we deploy? We're constructing 20 Dreadnought-class vessels, each built around a single Ragnarok cannon. They're not fast or maneuverable, but they don't need to be. They can fire from extreme range, 3 astronomical units or more. The Council ships won't even see them coming. Blake studied the designs carefully. This could work, but we'll need more than weapons. We need tactics, strategies that the Council has never encountered. Commander Steve Palmer entered the laboratory then, a man who had trained every fighter pilot in Earth's fleet. He was rough around the edges, someone who spoke his mind and expected others to do the same. I've been developing combat doctrines for the Ghost Fighters. The Council fights in formations, organized and predictable. We're going to fight like wolves, hitting from every angle, never where they expect. Over the next 5 months, Earth transformed itself into a war machine. Every resource, every mind, every hand turned toward one purpose: survival. The civilian population was evacuated to underground cities and deep space colonies. Anyone who could hold a weapon received training. The planet united in a way it never had before. Lieutenant Amy Foster worked in intelligence, analyzing every piece of data from Ambassador Carter's mission. She was young but brilliant, someone who could see patterns others missed. She discovered something crucial in the captured Council communications. Admiral Blake, she reported one morning, "I've found a weakness. The Council fleet uses a centralized command network. All ships linked to a single command structure for coordination. If we can hack that network, we can cause chaos." Blake brought in humanity's best hackers, people who had spent their lives breaking into systems that were supposed to be unbreakable. They studied the Council's encryption for weeks, finding gaps and vulnerabilities. The Council's network was sophisticated, but it had been designed 10,000 years ago. It had never been updated because the Council believed it was perfect. Human hackers knew that nothing was perfect. Everything could be broken if you were smart enough and determined enough. Dr. Rebecca Stone, still stranded aboard the ESS Valiant, finally managed to send a detailed message to Earth. It arrived 4 months after the warning. traveling at light speed across the void. She had included everything she learned about council biology, technology, and tactics. Her information proved invaluable. The council species have slower reaction times than humans, Rebecca's message explained. They're not used to fighting opponents who can think and move quickly. Their ships are powerful, but rely on automation and predictive systems. Against unpredictable human tactics, those systems will struggle. Captain Lauren Martinez commanded the construction efforts at the Mars shipyards. She pushed her teams 20 hours a day, building ships faster than anyone thought possible. Lauren was relentless, someone who accepted no excuses and tolerated no delays. Under her command, Earth's fleet grew from 80 ships to over 200. The new vessels were different from anything humanity had built before. They were designed for one purpose: killing council ships. No luxury quarters, no scientific laboratories, no diplomatic spaces. Just weapons, engines, and the bare minimum for crew survival. Commander Derek Chen led the mine layer operations, placing thousands of quantum mines along the most likely approach routes to Earth. These weapons were invisible, undetectable until activated. Any council ship trying to escape would find its faster-than-light engines disabled, leaving it vulnerable. As the 6-month deadline approached, Admiral Blake assembled his commanders in the war room. Every face was grim but determined. They had done everything possible to prepare. Now they would see if it was enough. The Council thinks they're coming to conquer a primitive species, Blake said. They believe we'll surrender when we see their fleet. They're wrong. We're going to show them what happens when you threaten humanity's home. Jake Morrison, promoted to colonel, outlined the security protocols. Every ship has self-destruct capability. If we're boarded, if capture is inevitable, we destroy the ship and deny the Council any intelligence about our capabilities. Lieutenant Foster presented her cyber warfare plan. The moment their fleet enters the system, we begin infiltration. False orders, corrupted targeting data, system failures. We'll turn their greatest strength into a liability. Dr. Moore unveiled one final surprise: Genesis torpedoes. They contain self-replicating nanomachines that consume enemy ships and use the material to build more torpedoes. Once deployed, they multiply exponentially. The Council banned nanotechnology in warfare for obvious reasons. Linda Hayes watched her military leaders plan the defense of Earth. She had never wanted war. Never imagined she would send millions to fight for survival. But the Council had made the choice for her. They had come with demands and threats, expecting humanity to kneel. "How confident are you?" she asked Blake privately. The Admiral was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, Madam President, I don't know. We've prepared as best we can. Our weapons are superior in many ways. But they have numbers, experience, and technology refined over thousands of years. This will be the hardest fight humanity has ever faced." "Then we'll fight harder than they expect," Linda said. "We'll use every advantage, exploit every weakness, and show them that threatening Earth was the worst mistake the Council ever made." When Council scouts arrived at the edge of the solar system, they found Earth's orbital space empty. No defensive fleet, no satellites, no military presence visible. They transmitted their findings back to the main fleet. Humanity had surrendered without a fight, just as 35 species had done before them. Admiral Blake watched the scout ships from his hidden command post inside the Tycho crater on Luna. He smiled coldly. "Let them think we're beaten. Let them come close. Let them think victory is easy." The trap was set. The weapons were ready. Humanity waited in the darkness, and when the Council fleet arrived, they would learn the truth about Earth's species. Humans did not surrender. They adapted. They overcame. They survived, and they were about to teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. The Council fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system in a display meant to terrify. 300 capital ships arranged themselves in the Judgment Formation, a pattern used countless times to intimidate conquered species into immediate surrender. Each vessel was enormous, some over 5 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that could reduce a planet to ash. Chancellor Vexter stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. His 4 eyes studied the scanners, expecting to see Earth's defensive fleet scattered and desperate. Instead, he saw nothing. The space around the human homeworld appeared completely empty. "They have abandoned their planet," said Subcommander Draw, a reptilian officer who had served in 12 conquest campaigns. The humans fled like cowards. Vexter was not so certain. He had reviewed the reports from the diplomatic mission. Ambassador Carter had been defiant and refused the tributary accords without hesitation. That did not seem like a species that would simply run away. Scan for any unusual readings. Energy signatures, mass distortions, anything out of place. The scanning officer, a being from a species that communicated through color changes, cycled through yellow tones of confusion. "Nothing, Chancellor. The system appears abandoned except for minimal civilian presence on the surface." "Broadcast the ultimatum," Vexter ordered. He would follow protocol, give the humans one final chance to surrender. It was more mercy than they deserved. The message went out across all frequencies, translated into human languages. "Humans of Earth, you have 1 hour to accept Council authority. Surrender your weapons, your technology, and your independence. Refuse, and we will begin planetary bombardment. Your cities will burn. Your species will be reduced to servitude. You have 1 hour." Inside the Tycho crater on Luna, Fleet Admiral Christopher Blake watched the Council fleet through passive sensors that left no trace. Around him, the command center hummed with quiet activity. Officers monitored stations, waiting for his order. Everyone knew the plan. Everyone understood what was at stake. 30 minutes, Blake said calmly. Let them get comfortable. Let them think we're too afraid to respond. The minutes crawled past. The Council fleet maintained its formation, weapons charged and ready. Vexter grew impatient. This was taking too long. Conquest should be quick, overwhelming, absolute. Tactical, prepare to target the largest human cities. We will show them the price of defiance. Then Blake gave the order that would echo through history. All units, weapons free. Space erupted into violence so sudden and so brutal that the Council fleet had no time to react. 60 ghost fighters materialized from stealth, their phantom fields dropping as they achieved weapons lock. They had been waiting in the darkness, invisible and silent, scattered throughout the Council formation. Commander Steve Palmer led the first strike wing. He had trained for this moment for 5 months, practiced the attack pattern 1,000 times. His targeting computer showed perfect lock on a Council cruiser. Fox 1, he said calmly, and pressed the firing button. 4 Hellfire missiles launched from his Ghost fighter, followed by 240 more from the other fighters in the formation. The antimatter warheads struck the Council ships with the force of small stars. Pure energy conversion, matter meeting antimatter and releasing destruction in its most absolute form. 12. Council capital ships simply ceased to exist in the first 3 seconds of combat. They didn't explode dramatically. They just converted to energy and radiation, leaving expanding spheres of light where mighty vessels had been moments before. The surrounding ships took catastrophic damage from the blasts, their shields overwhelmed by forces they had never been designed to withstand. All fighters scatter, Palmer ordered. Hit and fade, just like we practiced. The Ghost fighters vanished back into stealth, leaving the Council fleet in chaos. Alarms screamed on every bridge as officers tried to understand what had just happened. Where had the humans come from? How had they gotten so close? What kind of weapon could destroy a ship so completely? "Return fire!" Vexter screamed. "Target those fighters." But there was nothing to target. The ghost fighters were invisible again, moving through the council formation like sharks through a school of fish. They struck from impossible angles, fired their deadly missiles, and disappeared before return fire could be coordinated. 10 more council ships died in the next 5 minutes. Then the dreadnoughts revealed themselves. 20 massive human vessels appeared at the edge of the solar system, each one built around a single massive weapon. They were 3 astronomical units away, far beyond the range of any council weapon. To the council sensors, they appeared as minor threats, too far away to matter. Captain Lauren Martinez commanded the UES Retribution, the lead dreadnought. Her crew had trained on the Ragnarok cannon for months, learning to fire the massive weapon with precision. Now she had 20 council ships in her targeting solution, clustered together in their defensive formation. Ragnarok cannon charged and ready, her weapons officer reported. "Targeting solution locked." "Fire," Lauren said. The magnetic accelerators hummed with power, building to an impossible level, then released. 20 projectiles, each one a tungsten rod the size of a human torso, launched at 98% light speed. At that velocity, they crossed 3 astronomical units in less than 30 seconds. The council ships never saw them coming. The projectiles appeared on sensors and struck in the same instant. Too fast for shields to activate, too fast for evasive action. Pure kinetic energy, mass and velocity combining to punch through armor like tissue paper. Each projectile hit with the force of a nuclear weapon. The kinetic energy transfer was so violent that council ships literally tore themselves apart from the inside, their structures unable to withstand the shock. Bulkheads shattered, power cores exploded. Crew members died before they could even scream. 20 council capital ships died in the second wave of attack. The mighty Judgment Formation, designed to intimidate and overwhelm, became a scattered mob of confused and frightened vessels. Officers shouted contradictory orders. Captains tried to regroup their forces. Chaos spread through the fleet like a virus. Then Lieutenant Amy Foster's cyber warfare team struck. For months, they had studied the Council's command network, found every weakness, every vulnerability in the 10,000-year-old system. Now they injected their viruses and malicious code, turning the Council's greatest strength into a catastrophic liability. False orders flooded the network. Ships received commands to target their neighbors. Sensor data became corrupted, showing human vessels where there were none, showing empty space where real threats existed. The targeting computers malfunctioned, locking weapons on friendly vessels instead of enemies. Who was giving these orders? Sub-Commander Droll demanded on the Eternal Dominion. "Our own ships are firing on each other." Vexter watched his fleet tear itself apart, unable to comprehend what was happening. The humans should have been crushed in minutes. Instead, his fleet was dying, bleeding ships with every passing second. The scanners showed enemy vessels everywhere and nowhere, striking from impossible positions. "Break formation," he ordered desperately. "All ships, independent action. Locate and destroy the human fleet." But breaking formation made things worse. The coordinated defense became individual ships trying to survive, making them easier targets for Palmer's ghost fighters. The sleek human craft hunted through the scattered council vessels, their pilots whooping with savage joy as they took down ships 10,000 times their size. Commander Derek Chen's minds activated then. Quantum devices that had been seeded throughout the system weeks before. Council ships trying to flee found their faster-than-light drives suddenly disabled, leaving them drifting and helpless. The ghost fighters swarmed over them like predators scenting wounded prey. Admiral Blake watched the battle unfold from his command center. The tactical display showed council ships dying faster than his officers could update the count. 30 ships gone, 50, 70. The numbers kept climbing, each one representing thousands of enemy casualties. "Deploy the Genesis torpedoes," he ordered. It was time to end this. Dr. Patricia Moore's final creation launched from hidden positions throughout the system. The Genesis torpedoes appeared harmless, small weapons that seemed insignificant compared to the Hellfire missiles. But they carried something far more terrifying than antimatter. The first torpedo struck a Council destroyer, penetrating the hull and releasing its payload. Self-replicating nanomachines, programmed with a single purpose: consume and multiply. They spread through the ship like a disease, breaking down every atom they encountered. Using the material to build more nanomachines, the destroyer began to disintegrate from the inside out. Crew members watched in horror as bulkheads dissolved, as systems failed, as the ship was literally eaten alive. Within 10 minutes, the destroyer was gone, converted into millions of new Genesis torpedoes that sought out other Council vessels. "What is that?" Drawl whispered, watching the tactical display show the spreading contamination. "What have they done?" The nanomachines were designed to be unstoppable. They consumed Council ships faster and faster as their numbers grew, each torpedo splitting into dozens more, each new generation more efficient than the last. Ships fled desperately, but the nanomachines followed. Patient Chancellor Vexter could not believe his eyes as he watched his fleet die. The Eternal Dominion shook as explosions rippled across its shields from nearby ship deaths. Around him, officers shouted status reports that grew more desperate with each passing minute. The mighty Council fleet, which had conquered 35 species over thousands of years, was being systematically destroyed by a species that had reached the stars only decades ago. 120 ships lost, Subcommander Drawl reported, his reptilian voice shaking. The nanomachini weapons have spread to 43 vessels. Crews are abandoning ship, but the machines follow the escape pods. Nothing stops them. Vexter had transmitted his surrender offer 10 minutes ago. The human response had been immediate and absolute. One word: no. The humans would not accept surrender. They would not show mercy. They fought with a savagery that the Council had forgotten existed in the universe. "Deploy all fighter wings," Vexter ordered. "Target the human capital ships. We must destroy something, anything, to show we can fight back." 2,000 Council fighters launched from their carriers, sleek craft piloted by species bred for space combat over generations. They should have overwhelmed the human forces through sheer numbers. Instead, they flew into a killing field that Commander Steve Palmer had prepared specifically for them. The Ghost Fighters had been holding back, waiting for this moment. Palmer watched his tactical display as the Council fighters formed up, following standard attack patterns. He smiled coldly. "All wings, execute swarm protocol. Show them how Earth's apex predators hunt." The 60 Ghost Fighters split into 6-ship teams and struck from every direction at once. Their phantom stealth made them impossible to track until they fired. Their Hellfire missiles, designed to kill capital ships, obliterated Council fighters by the dozen with each shot. The antimatter warheads detonated in the middle of Council formations, taking out entire squadrons. Council pilots had trained for organized combat, for formations and coordinated attacks. The humans fought like nothing they had ever encountered, appearing from nowhere, striking with overwhelming force, then vanishing before the enemy could respond. It was not warfare as the Council understood it. It was slaughter. Within 20 minutes, half the Council fighter wings were destroyed. The survivors broke formation and fled in panic, many crashing into their own capital ships in their desperation to escape. Palmer let them run, turning his attention back to the main fleet. Captain Lauren Martinez and her dreadnought squadron continued their methodical destruction of the Council fleet. The Ragnarok cannons fired every 90 seconds, each shot crossing the vast distance in less than 30 seconds. The Council ships tried to scatter, to present moving targets, but the human targeting computers predicted their movements with terrifying accuracy. "Target destroyed," Martinez's weapons officer reported after another successful shot. "That makes 32 confirmed kills for the Retribution." "Acquire next target," Lauren said calmly. She felt no joy in this, no satisfaction, just grim determination to protect her home. The Council had come to conquer Earth, to enslave humanity. Now they would learn the price of that mistake. Lieutenant Amy Foster watched her infiltration programs tear through the Council command network. What had started as targeted attacks had evolved into complete system collapse. The 10,000-year-old network, designed when the Council's founding species were at war with each other, had never been updated because the Council believed their technology was perfect. Amy had proved them wrong in less than 6 hours. She had taken control of targeting systems, weapons platforms, life support networks, and communication arrays. Council ships now fought blind, unable to coordinate, unable to trust any data their sensors provided. Some ships had stopped fighting entirely, their crews too afraid to fire weapons that might target their own allies. "Admiral Blake," Amy reported, "I have access to the Eternal Dominion's main systems. I can disable their engines, drop their shields, or shut down life support." "Your orders?" Blake considered for a moment. Killing Vexter would be easy, satisfying even. But he needed the Chancellor alive to carry a message back to the Council. Disable their weapons and engines. Leave life support functional. I want them to survive long enough to tell their masters what happened here. The Genesis torpedoes continued their relentless work. The self-replicating nanomachines had spread to over 100 Council ships now, consuming them from the inside out. Dr. Patricia Moore watched the progression from her laboratory, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The nanomachines were performing exactly as designed, breaking down enemy vessels and using the material to create more weapons. How long until they consumed the entire fleet? President Linda Hayes asked. She had joined Moore in the laboratory, unable to simply wait in her office while humanity's fate was decided. "At current rate, approximately 4 more hours," Moore replied. "But many ships are abandoning their vessels now. The nanomachines are programmed to ignore biological life and focus on ship materials. The enemy crews will survive." "Good," Linda said. She wanted the Council to understand their mistake, but she was not interested in genocide. Let them live to tell others what happens when you threaten Earth. Commander Jake Morrison, now coordinating ground defense forces, watched the space battle from his command post in Colorado. The Council fleet had been so focused on the space engagement that they had never attempted planetary assault. That was fortunate because despite all their preparation, Earth's ground forces could not have stopped a determined orbital bombardment. "The Council is broken," Jake reported to Blake. "Intelligence indicates several ships are actively trying to flee the system. Your orders regarding pursuit?" "Let them go," Blake replied. "We've made our point. Anyone who wants to run can run, but any ship that continues to fight will be destroyed without mercy." The word spread quickly through the Council fleet. The humans would allow retreat. Within minutes, 50 Council ships turned and fled toward the edge of the system, their faster-than-light drives charging for emergency jumps. Commander Derek Chun's quantum mines disabled a dozen of them, but the rest escaped into the void that left approximately 130 Council ships that were either too damaged to flee, too proud to retreat, or simply frozen with indecision. Admiral Blake gave them 1 hour to make their choice. Surrender and be taken prisoner, or continue fighting and be destroyed. Chancellor Vexter sat in his command chair aboard the disabled Eternal Dominion, watching the humans give his fleet an ultimatum. The irony was not lost on him. 6 hours ago, He had been the one making demands, confident in the Council's power. Now his flagship was dead in space, his fleet was shattered, and he was at humanity's mercy. What should we do? Droll asked quietly. The sub-commander's confidence had evaporated, replaced by fear and uncertainty. Vexthor activated the fleet-wide channel. All Council vessels. This is Chancellor Vexthor. I am ordering complete surrender. Power down weapons, lower shields, and await boarding by human forces. We have lost this battle. Perhaps we can survive to learn from it. One by one, the remaining Council ships complied. Their shields dropped, their weapons powered down, their crews prepared for captivity. For the first time in 10,000 years, a Council fleet had been defeated in open combat. Destroyed by a species they had considered primitive and weak, Admiral Blake sent boarding teams to secure the Council ships and take their crews prisoner. The humans were professional and correct in their treatment of the defeated enemy. No revenge killings, no torture, no unnecessary cruelty. They simply disarmed the Council forces and confined them to designated areas. When Blake finally stepped aboard the Eternal Dominion, Vexthor met him in the main docking bay. The Chancellor's 4 eyes studied the human admiral, trying to understand what kind of species could fight with such ferocity, yet show restraint in victory. I underestimated humanity, Vexthor said simply. The Council underestimated you. That was our mistake. Yes, Blake replied. Your mistake was thinking conquest would be easy. Your mistake was believing advanced age meant superior wisdom. Your mistake was threatening our home. What will you do now? Vexthor asked. Execute us? Display us as trophies? Blake shook his head. We're going to send you home. You and every surviving crew member from your fleet. You're going to return to the Council and tell them exactly what happened here. Tell them that Earth refuses to be conquered. Tell them that humanity will not kneel to anyone. Vexthor was confused. You would let us go? After we came to destroy your world? We want peace, Blake said. But we'll accept war if that's what the Council chooses. Either way, Earth will remain free. Take that message to your leaders. Tell them that the old order is ending. The galaxy has changed. Over the next week, the human fleet processed thousands of Council prisoners. They were given medical treatment, adequate food and water, and transport back to Council space aboard captured ships. The Council crews departed with a new understanding of humanity. These were not primitive savages to be conquered. They were a warrior species that had chosen restraint, not because they lacked the ability to destroy, but because they valued life even in their enemies. Captain Lucas Hayes and his crew Abo